Today in this video, I'm giving you my 1-year review of the Avid Matrix Studio, telling you all of the things that I love about it, why it fits a really specific niche for what I need out of an interface, how it sounds, and just about everything else. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Capper and thank you for stopping by for another video. Now I unboxed this interface in a video a year and 2 months ago, 14 months ago. And I began using it 1 year ago. So I have a full year of use of this. I have mixed, I don't even know how many songs. I've recorded with it, I've mixed with it, I've mastered with it. Obviously it handles my room tuning. But videos on interfaces are kind of hard to make because how do I let you hear it really? Like other than talking through it, which doesn't really prove anything. Because let's be honest, if your interface sounds bad talking through it, you've got real problems. So today I'd just like to walk you through how I use it and how my experience has been. How I use the Avid Matrix Studio. Now I'm personally connecting this to my computer via the Thunderbolt port, the Thunderbolt expansion port, and via HDX. So you can use this interface in either way, whether you're running HD or not HD, you can run it using Dante. Like you can run this interface a bunch of different ways. And it is not DAW specific, so it works with whatever DAW you're using. We'll get into in a little bit the benefits of running like HDX and Thunderbolt at the same time, because it does some really fascinating stuff. So the primary use here in my studio is I track through this because it does actually sound better than the conversion in my Avid HDIO. The conversion on it is fantastic. I'm using it for all of my room tuning for Atmos, because that was the main reason why I went with this interface, is to have all of the control for EQ and delay over each individual speaker in Atmos. So I'm running all of the outputs, all the speakers are connected directly to the actual outputs of the interface. And then there's 2 headphone outputs that are independently controllable, which is fantastic. And I realized that I'm not even scratching the surface of what this box is capable of. However, it does, when I was looking for the right interface to set this all up, it checked every box that I needed. Now there is software to control this interface called Dadman, and it's not like UA console, but it's kind of similar where you handle all of your routing, your inputs and your outputs for the interface via the Dadman software. Now the reason why I say it's not like the UA console is because it is infinitely configurable. Like the flexibility of this software is kind of mind-bending to me personally. The fact, like I can run any input to any output and have EQ and all kinds of delay on anything that I want. So let's just jump over into Dadman real quick right now, and I will show you exactly how I have mine set up for my specific needs and use cases. Okay, so let's jump in and take a look at Dadman, the software that runs the Matrix Studio. So you can see this is how I have it set up for my rig right here. And let me walk you through some of the things that I have it set up to do. So I have my sources over here. So OS, if I'm playing Apple Music or anything like that, playing a file. My input from Pro Tools 914, so when I'm mixing in Atmos, and the render, if I'm just listening to music from the render or if I'm mastering Atmos stuff. So you can see how these all mute and unmute depending on which ones I'm actually clicking on. So those are my inputs. Then we go over here to the outputs, and here's all my outputs. So this is stereo, just left and right speakers, no EQ or anything like that. This is flat stereo with the sub. So it's the sub crossed over and calibrated. So this is the flattest version of my room, which is plus or minus like 2.7 dB. Crazy, crazy flat. But then I like more low end almost all the time when I'm mixing. And so this is my own mix profile where I've tweaked the subwoofer levels and the EQ slightly. So that way it gives me just a little bit more oomph, a little bit more push. And then party mode, when clients are in and they just need to feel it bumping, you gotta have a mode for that. Now, these are all my outputs, so it's changing the sound of the speakers in the room with each one of these. Then I've got headphones 1 over here, so I can put that on my actual output because I never want my speakers playing with my headphones that I'm actually using. And I've got all of these set with different levels, so that way when I literally switch between them, they are all level matched, which is really awesome. And then we've got a 714 profile, a 914 profile, and a 914 curve. Now this 914 profile is my own custom built profile. That is exactly how I want the room to sound, so that way it translates the best for me. And then this is the Dolby curve, and I switch back and forth between these. Now, if you go in here to EQ, what is fascinating is you can see that because every speaker is in a different location physically in the room, and because they're pointed in a different angle in the room, you need EQ on every single speaker in order to get them all to sound the same. So if you're flying whatever, a vocal around the room, not that you would ever do that, but you want it to sound the same in every direction. But it takes EQ to do this. This is something that is necessary for any room and any rig if you actually want that cohesive sound. So you can see here, in addition to that, we set up a laser with all of these speakers. And so all of these speakers around me are within 1/100th of a foot from the listening position, but that doesn't mean that they're flawless. So what you can see here is this is the delay right here. And if you watch this delay time as I click through the different speakers, you can see that delay time change. Now it's not much, this is in milliseconds, but you can see how that delay time changes for every single speaker. So we ran a transfer function, a round trip from the mix position to capture the delay for every single speaker. It was not guesswork, it's very science-based. And then we plug that delay in so that way the phase coherence of this rig is perfect. But then you can also see the different EQ changes here between all of the different speakers in order to get them to sound exactly the same. Now they're not huge EQ moves, but they are EQ moves. And so we tuned this based on what it was correct, what was technically flat, and then I went in and tweaked myself and we went back and forth. It was a whole process. And you can even see on the mix profile here, if we look at the EQ on my mix profile, you can see some EQ here in left and in right, and in the low end, the EQ for the subwoofers that I have tweaked. And so that is one of the coolest things about this system, is being able to do all of that built right in. But then we get over into, I have a whole nother monitor section here in Dadman, and this is all my extra routing. So for instance, second pair of headphones, which you can see right here. So I have two sources, my OS and Pro Tools. So second set of headphones, so independent mix with independent volume. And then I still have an NS10 button up here when I was testing out my NS10s in a recent video, and then hard disk recorder. So this is so awesome to me. When I'm doing screen recording tutorials, this is how I capture my monitor output path. So outputs 15 and 16 on the Matrix Studio run to a hard disk recorder. And then this hard disk recorder is selected, and that selects those outputs. And then I have my independent volume send to my hard disk recorder, so it's capturing my actual monitor output path. And then I can listen on my headphones with a completely separate volume and send my monitor output path also duplicated to the hard disk recorder with its own volume, which is just awesome. It's just awesome. Now, here is how you get into actually setting up the interface, the word clock, all of that kind of stuff. But then when you go to settings here, this is how you actually configure everything. So monitor, you would actually edit all of these sources in here. So here's how you would add your sources, and here's how you would add your outputs. And you can literally add and change all of this stuff, the volume of each one of these and everything right here in the monitor profile configuration. So as you can see, unbelievably powerful. And this is just how I have it set up. There are people who have a much more complicated setup than I do, but unbelievably powerful. Now, like I said, the converters in this are really, really good. I did run a test to see which ones I preferred for tracking between the HDIO and the Matrix Studio, and I did, for tracking, prefer the Matrix Studio. They're just a little cleaner, a little bit more three-dimensional. They're just a little bit better sounding. Now you can run this interface via ADAT versus via Dante, 64 channels and all sample rates via Dante. You can run it via HDAX. It has 16 ins and 16 outs of analog. It has 2 mic pre's built in and 2 independent headphones. Now what's really cool about running Thunderbolt and HDX at the same time is you can do a bunch of stuff like run 2 DAWs at the same time. So you could compose in Logic and edit and mix in Pro Tools and do that via the same interface at the same time, which is pretty insane. You could run this on 2 computers simultaneously. For instance, for a long time, people for Atmos were using 2 computers, one computer to pitch and one computer to catch or send and record the Atmos mixes, and you could do all of that with one box if you needed to, or any other scenario you could dream up in which you needed 2 computers running off of a single interface simultaneously. Now there are full assignable soft keys on the front for different modes. You do have a volume control on the front, and in Dadman you can control it. You can set up exactly how you'd like all of these buttons to work, which is fantastic. Now the reason why I went with this entire setup, which is the HDX card, the HDIO, and the Avid Matrix Studio, is because I needed to solve a couple things. One, obviously, as you guys know, I mix with a ton of hardware. For years back in the day, I ran an Avid HD3 rig, or back then I guess it would have been DigiDesign, but I ran an HD3 rig for years, and the automatic delay compensation when mixing with hardware is just, it's such a game changer for me that when I went away from that and I didn't have that anymore, it was a pain point every single day. Every day that I was mixing, it was a pain point. And for years, for almost a decade, I was like, I'm gonna go back HD. When the time for the next rig comes, I'm going back Pro Tools HD. So when I decided to go Atmos, obviously that means a whole new rig, and this was the perfect opportunity to just fix all of the problems that I had had with my previous rig that I'd been running for a long time. So HDIO runs all of my analog hardware IO. Now you can obviously track through it as well, and it sounds great. But it runs all of my hardware when I'm mixing, all my hardware inserts, and it does that via the HDX card. So there is automatic delay compensation, which is just, it's just seamless. It just works. It's rock solid, and it just works. Pro Tools doesn't crash on me. It doesn't glitch on me. I have zero issues, which was my experience with my previous HD rig as well, and one of the reasons why I wanted to go back to HDX. Then I needed an interface for tuning the Atmos rig. I needed an interface that would run 16 outputs because there are 15 speakers in here. 15 speakers, but the subs are on a single output. So 14 outputs that I needed from an interface in order to run this 9.1.4 system. And I knew that I needed room tuning built into it. And not just rudimentary tuning. There's a lot of interfaces out there that have pretty rudimentary tuning. Rudimentary delay values or no delay, and rudimentary EQ. And that is not the case with the Avid Matrix Studio. It has really in-depth, as you saw, it has really in-depth tuning capabilities. And so since I wanted to go HDX and the HDIO anyway, it just made perfect sense. It seemed like it was the very perfect solution for what I needed. Atmos, room tuning, being able to track, mixing with tons of hardware. I still believe that this is like the best setup for what I'm using, and I've had a wonderful time working on it for the past year. I don't normally wait a full calendar year to review something, but here we are. Now the Thunderbolt card is optional for this, and I will put links down below for all of this stuff, so that way you can go check it out, check out prices, check out specs, all of that kind of stuff. Those links do go to Sweetwater, so I just want to thank Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. They did not send me all of this, but thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video. So anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear whatsoever, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any link in the description of any video, and once you're on the site, you can purchase absolutely anything you need. When you do that, it goes a long ways to help support this channel and help me keep making videos just like this. So thank you so much to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. And thank you to you guys for using the links anytime you need to purchase anything. Now, what are some drawbacks of this rig? Probably the price would be the one drawback. Not because I don't think it's worth it, not because it's priced above what it should be, or it's priced higher than its spec sheet or what it's capable of should be, but it's not a cheap rig. This is not a rig for amateurs. This is not a rig for hobbyists. This is a serious rig for people who work in a very professional environment or who just want the absolute best. Now, I am going to be rearranging some stuff in the studio here, so stay tuned for the video on that. I'm going to switch some stuff around, move the interfaces. That's why you see this giant hole here in the interface. There's some stuff getting ready to change, and so I'm excited to do that. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helped you. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.